think we can take it, 'cause it took so long to bake it. Well, thank you very much, Elvis. Take a line from you. Didn't notice those hips swinging that time. For all I know, I'm the one with Elvis's hips. But seriously, folks, it's time now to turn to tonight's story of terror, entitled The Cake. Well, it's tough being a baker. You have to keep long hours. And it's true, I quit philosophy to become a baker. I just needed more dough. Anyway, I'm getting ready for a wedding tomorrow, so I had to order a lot more Mrs. Freshly's dessert cups. You can put strawberries and whipped cream in these. They're really delicious cakes. And then, of course, I'm going to be up all night making the wedding cake here for the wedding.
Isn't that wedding for a same-sex marriage?
Yes, it is for a same-sex wedding. So what? Do you have a problem with that?
Yes, I do, because I think it goes against the will of God.
Oh, I get it. You're like that baker in Colorado, aren't you? Well, let me show you what I used to show my ethics students in ethics class before I became a baker.
Oh no, you're not going to show me PowerPoints, please.
Don't worry, silly goose. These are interesting ones, I promise. You're gonna love it. Everybody will. Natural law theory was developed in the Middle Ages by St. Thomas Aquinas. Aquinas agreed with Aristotle that humans have a way that we are supposed to live, but he thought our purpose is given to us by God. God designed us to behave in certain natural ways, he believed. If we do that, we flourish. If we do not, we won't flourish. Aquinas' religious version of virtue ethics, natural law theory. St. Thomas Aquinas appears on the scene 1,000 years after Aristotle. Thomas was from Aquino, Italy. His father wanted him to be a lawyer, but Aquinas wanted to be a priest. In order to make him ineligible for the priesthood, his father supposedly locked him in a room with a prostitute. But Aquinas prayed his way out of the situation. He became a saint when, according to witnesses, the Jesus of a large wooden crucifix temporarily came to life to vouch for him. Thomas was an Italian philosopher born in 1224. He became a member of the Dominican order at the University of Naples. He studied philosophy and theology in Paris and what we call Cologne in Germany. He received an advanced theology degree and became a priest and a university teacher. He died in 1274. Aquinas' natural law theory of ethics is very similar to Aristotle's virtue theory. The difference is that natural law says God, with a capital G, created the world with a purpose for everything. St. Thomas Aquinas spent his life trying to synthesize the Bible and Aristotle. In so doing, he is going to Christianize Aristotle and suggest that the moral virtues and moral truths are all the result of human nature as designed by God. For Aquinas, the virtues connect very well to Christian values. Purpose in the world. He gives a few examples. Among them are gluttony, drinking too much, and what he calls unisexual lust. The moral law, not these courses of action, is what we are meant to follow. A rock was designed by God with a purpose, to roll downhill or occupy a low point. The purpose of a bird is to fly. The moral purpose of humans is to avoid sin, where sin is what is unreasonable and outside of our purpose. The Bible and the Christian tradition warn against gluttony, and God made gluttony as an unreasonable extreme, eating too much. The Bible warns against drunkenness, and God made getting too drunk not make sense. How does it make sense to drive to a bar, get drunk, and then risk your life to get home, given that you have a natural impulse to avoid death? It doesn't. Also, Aquinas claims that unisexual lust is unnatural and therefore morally wrong. Think of his point in this way. To have no attraction to no one might be the deficiency. To be attracted to both males and females in lust is the extreme. The middle ground, God's natural law, is to want sex insofar as it produces offspring within the confines of a marriage between a man and a woman. Many religious people used to argue against homosexuality in just this way. It was seen as unnatural and a mental illness until fairly recently here in the U.S. If it's possible, I'm going to stop the video at this point and ask you to think about the following argument. Here is Aquinas' argument against homosexuality. The natural law argument against homosexuality. Premise 1. What is unnatural is morally wrong. Premise 2. Homosexuality is unnatural. Conclusion. Therefore, homosexuality is morally wrong. Before we go on, what do you think about this argument? Write it in the right place, wherever I'm going to have you write it, journal, whatever. I'll tell you when I stop the video. Okay, here are some possible criticisms of the argument. Objection to premise 1. Premise 1 is false. It is false that what is unnatural is morally wrong. Dams, heart transplants, voluntary celibacy practiced by the clergy, haircuts, all of these things are unnatural in some sense of that word. Heart transplants are unnatural in that they require drastic human intervention. Voluntary celibacy is unnatural in that it goes against the volunteer's instincts. Furthermore, P2 is false, for homosexuality is found in nature in a way that voluntary celibacy and heart transplants are not. Gay sex happens in nature without human artifice or intervention. And here's a little snippet from Science Daily that it's an article that's been vetted. Biology behind homosexuality in sheep study confirms. Researchers in the Oregon Health and Science University School of Medicine have confirmed that a male sheep's preference for same-sex partners has biological underpinnings. So that's just one example of gay sex in nature. And just an extra point to make here, a couple of criticisms. An objection to virtue ethics is who decides what is the excess and the deficiency and the mean. It's not that it's unanswerable, but you do need to figure that out, is that how do we know what the middle ground is between the excess and the deficiency? Similarly, an objection to natural law. Natural law says God decides what is natural, but how do we know what God deems natural and unnatural? isn't there disagreement about the content of the holy books? So you can find one preacher, let's just say, who thinks that there's nothing wrong with being gay, nothing wrong with same-sex marriage, nothing wrong with a openly gay pastor of a church. You find another fundamentalist preacher who thinks all of those things are wrong and that it is a sin. How do we figure out what the will of God really is? It's the Euthyphro problem. What the? The wedding cake. It disappeared. Now we'll never know if I convinced it or not.
Yes, you'll never know, because we're going to kill you.
The Freshleys. But why?
Because we're Elvis fans.
Oh, is that it? Well, look, it's true confession time. I'm a big Elvis fan too. Look, I even have memorabilia. This is an Elvis license plate from the year, yeah, I believe well, no, it was 1996, but it has the year 1977 in the corner. And then another look at this Christmas ornament I have. In fact, look, guys, if you're such big Elvis fans, I could let you use this. This little Christmas ornament would be the perfect size guitar for you. Let's try it out and see if it works, okay? And see you next time.